So I was out in the centre of Westbury the other day, and I came across this group of Reform UK canvassers or campaigners, and I don't really know what to say when these sorts of people come along and try to canvass you and try to sort of they do the kind of little like litmus test with you to see if you're down with their sort of politics, to see if you know who they are and what they're all about. And I was listening to Professor Tim Wilson this morning talking all about UKIP, the EDL and the BNP and the National Front before then, and how UKIP is basically just like the BNP light, or a different front for the National Front now. And yeah, it's the scariest thing about these political parties is how popular they've become, and how they did manage to get Brexit to happen, and they do manage to have a palpable influence on politics and economics, and changing the course of our country's history with something like the Brexit referendum. And because Reform UK was the Brexit party before then, and before then it was UKIP, was it? Or because Nigel Farage stepped down as the leader of UKIP, was it after the 2016 referendum, and said that he didn't want any part of it, even though since 1993 he'd been campaigning to bring that about, to make that happen. Since we joined the European Union, people have been campaigning for us to leave the European Union. It's really quite insane. It's really a mark of, well, how racist the country is, how intolerant we are. And I was watching this Channel 4 news footage now of some Reform UK campaigners in Clacton, and they're talking about their stratagem for dealing with migrants coming over in small boats is to just shoot them on the beach. Like, well, we can't live in that sort of country, can we? I mean, what I'm writing a book about this at the moment. I'm writing a book about a futuristic civil war set in the United Kingdom, wherein these ultra nationalist types do end up getting into power and do end up committing atrocities against migrant populations here in the UK, and do, yeah, engage in these awful behaviours, these atrocious acts, these acts of ethnic cleansing. Is that really where we're headed as a society? Is that what we want to cave into and give into and allow to proliferate? Because these sorts of people, they put a huge amount of effort into their politics, into their canvassing and campaigning. They put, yeah, and they really do get their message around and spread it around to all sorts of people who, for one reason or another, are sympathetic to that way of thinking. And they do think that, you know, the biggest problem with the United Kingdom is immigration, and they do think that everyone from all over the world is coming over here to take our jobs, get into our social security system, take our houses, and all this sort of thing, and that we can't do anything about it other than resort to violence. And there's, you know, no small amount of other forms of bigotry involved with their campaigns: homophobia, sexism. Yeah, and it's a nightmare. It's revolting to have to look at it all. It's revolting to have to go around knowing that X portion of the population voted for Brexit at all, and then after having known that they voted for Brexit, having to sort of dissect their motives for having done so to see if it could be excused or not. And was it really just some racist opinion? Or when you know, come across yet another person who says, "Oh, I'm going to vote Reform UK." Oh God, Jesus! I don't want to talk politics with you, and yet they always want to talk politics with you. Yes, they do. They always want to bring it back around to their angle on the discussion, that migrants are to blame for everything and going wrong in the country, and that if we just got rid of them all, sent them back, that our country would be a better place. We go around starting wars around the world in other countries, like Iraq, like Afghanistan. We can't therefore, like, act all fucking uptight about it when people want to come here. When people want to come here, yeah, like it's obvious that we want to come here for better lives because we've left other parts of the world war torn and ravaged by our exploits overseas, and people want to come here for a better life. We've deprived the world through our economic policies throughout history of the sorts of lives that we have here in the West through various means and ways of achieving that, and it's pretty horrendous that we don't allow people to come here to the West or don't want to because we feel we're getting overcrowded or something, or that we take care of asylum seekers and we take care of everyone here. That's the point of Britain. That's the point of liberal democratic nation states in the Western world in the 21st century. We do try to take care of everybody. And that's a noble and just and good thing. But, well, what sort of country will we end up living in if we follow the policies of Reform UK and follow that sort of thing? We'll end up living in a failed state. It'll be the Britain from V for Vendetta. That's what will end up rising in place of whatever we have now. I don't deny that what we have at the moment is pretty shoddy, shabby, shitty and awful. And it's not, by any stretch of the imagination, the best country we could have. But, yeah, if we want to descend further down this pit of isolationist, nationalist madness, following from the Brexit logic and the fact that we're going to be totally self-reliant. That's the crucial thing about this. We're not totally self-reliant, nor can we be at this point, with the number of British people here, let alone migrants. We don't get 50% of our food from our farmland here, nor can we. We can't feed the population with the amount of agricultural land we have, so we need to buy things in from overseas. We also need workers to come here from overseas to do the jobs that people here don't want to do, or that aren't enough people here to do all the jobs that need to be done here. So we need people from overseas. That's just the way things are, and that's the way things are pretty much everywhere as well. I mean, every country has some contingents of migrant populace. And that's just normal and natural, I think, for developed Western nations. And, countries like the United States have historically huge immigrant populations, very open to migrants. And places like Britain as well, more so recently, but, not as traditionally as the United States. And, all around the world, this trend of peoples moving around the world has never really stopped. And it never really stopped in the UK either, and it goes back to the Romans, if you want to go back that far, or it goes back to the Neolithic period, if you want to go even further than that. I was just saying, stop this nonsense. Stop this ridiculous trend. I don't know what sort of utopia people are imagining Reform UK will bring for the United Kingdom. I shudder to think what it'll be. Is it an ethnically pure state? Is that what you want? I mean, what's it going to come down to ultimately? If it's, some sort of foreign lineage that you come from. My Cottle, my surname, Cottel, it comes from the French. It comes from Old French. My family arrived on these shores with the Norman Conquest in 1066. When were there indigenously British people? I don't understand what that means. I mean, does it go back further than Norman Conquest? The Angles and the Saxons, those came from Germany, the Jutes and so on, those came from the Iberian Peninsula, as I understand it. And then before the Jutes, it was the Romans, famously from Italy. And who else? All sorts of people, Vikings, Frankish, Gaulish people, those arrived on British shores, I'm pretty certain, back in the day. Everyone's come here, everyone's had their go on Britain, everyone's enjoyed the Britain, the lovely place, the happy place with Glastonbury and all the great music, and yeah, things to be proud of in Britain as well. But the things to be proud of not Reform UK, and like nothing cool has ever risen because of like some National Front tribute band with racist songs. That shit just wouldn't fly here. But it's just a mark of desperation. I think that's the spirit undergirding all this. I think what it comes down to is there's a lot of economic deprivation in Britain. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of crime, a lot of corruption, and our government is a shaking can of shit. But it's it's not the answer, is it? Reform UK. It wouldn't make anything better. It would just make things worse. I don't know. I don't know. But it disturbs me to think about it. It disturbs me that so many people out there are that thick. And it disturbs me that, you know, the country is sliding into such a shit pit with the economy and so on, that it's framed as a viable alternative. And it's, you know, what people do tend to turn to historically in times of economic turmoil, these more extreme radical opinions and positions. And we know that well from history, and we should be learning that lesson from history and doing something serious about the taxation and redistribution of wealth to repair these inequalities in society and give people more of the necessities of life that they need. So if they had work, if they had housing, if they had all these things that the government can provide through better management of the economy and so on, then they wouldn't feel the need to turn to extreme political positions like that to Reform UK. And hopefully the next government is going to do something about that. And hopefully, yeah, Keir Starmer will sort everything out. We hope. But there's a huge amount of cynicism because these political solutions, such as the mainstream offer, haven't really worked out very well in the past, it seems, for a lot of people, and often don't get to the root cause of the problems. So the position that people vote, from which they vote Reform UK, is to some extent understandable, I guess. But yeah, still hard to think about and for me to rationalise. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. I love you lots. See you soon.